Good day. Nice to be with you. Maybe you know this week, especially, you've been walking through some of the stories of the desert, inviting us to pray a bit with the scriptures. As I've mentioned, Bishop Stephen has used that image, saying that this is a time that we're in the desert. And as I was praying into that, I said, what a great opportunity for us to go back to some of the Old Testament stories and maybe some of the desert story of Jesus and ask, what does it mean for us to be in the desert? As I shared with you, I firmly believe this is holy ground and this is a holy time. There can be a spiritual renewal that comes out of this that none of us were expecting. On Monday, I recorded a video on Lectio Divina, Holy Reading. Seth, the seminarian, recorded a video on the imagination prayer style of St. Ignatius. So as you're reading the scriptures and praying with the scriptures, if that's helpful, go back to those. There are also some written links that are associated with those to give us a better way to pray in these days. Our text today is the book of Exodus, chapter 16, all of chapter 16 and into chapter 17 through verse 7. But especially maybe if you're looking for a very quick hit or you only have a little bit of time, I'd invite you to pray with Exodus chapter 16, verses 22 to 31. These are the stories of God providing for the people with manna and with quail and with water from the rock. As you read into this, you'll see that there are rules from God, regulations about go out and collect what you need for the day, no more, no less than for each household, and don't take for 2 days. And it actually grows full of maggots on the second day, except when they are to collect on a Friday in preparation for the Sabbath day. And God regulates as well that they rest in the midst of the desert. And the people are perfectly cared for. First, with manna. And then, when it's not enough that God's feeding them miraculously, they demand meat after my own heart. And so God sends quail upon the camp. And then in chapter 17, well, obviously, what do you need? You need something to wash it down with. And so they demand fluid. And in each of these times when the people grumble against God who provides, God, through Moses, cares for the people and gives them what they need. One of the things that I'd invite us to pray into today is the way that God has given us everything. And this can be hard for us as Americans to see sometimes because we can say, no, look, it was through my own hard work that I got what I had. I wasn't given anything in my life. But I'd invite us maybe to spend some time reflecting. Who gave us our work ethic? That's one of those things that we probably took into ourselves early on. You might be able to see in your own family, you got the work ethic, and maybe somebody who grew up in the same household didn't. Maybe you can look back and see some of those times when it broke your way, what we might describe secularly as lucky, where all of the pieces fell into place and you had an opportunity that somebody else did not. Maybe you look at your family of origin. Maybe you had a good family and they're the ones that taught you strong values and the way to live. Again, a gift from God. Maybe, I know some of us come from pretty rough and traumatic backgrounds. We say, I did all this work. But remember, there's something inside of us, what we might call grit or resiliency, that made us claw from that place of origin that other people who came from the same place never got out of. All of these different ways might be ways that we see that everything about who we are comes from God. We didn't make the decision to download the software into this hardware. We are who we are, we come to be. And then the gift of faith, which we know is a gift from God. And it might be one of those things that sometimes we sit back and we think, why is it that I have this gift of faith when other people who are good, kind, compassionate people don't believe that there's a God, or that there's a Redeemer, or that there's eternal life? How is it that I came to receive this gift of faith? All of these are examples of the ways that God has cared for us. Everything about us comes from God, right? The people in the desert relied on God, and God provided everything that they needed. This is an opportunity for us to pray into the way that God provides for our needs as well, and has made us who we are. And then maybe we can also focus on these days. Is God calling us to only take what we need for this day? Jesus picks this up in the Lord's Prayer. Give us this day our daily bread. And especially as we might be afraid, worried, paranoid about toilet paper or about rice and beans, will we have enough? Give us this day our daily bread. Take that which we need so that others can have what they also need. Maybe another way that God provides for us as we listen, as we read this, is in the day of rest, the Lord's Day, the Sabbath day. Something that I think that most of us have been pretty poor at in general. And now we experienced enforced Sabbaths, enforced days of rest. Instead of being busy, preoccupied, to rest in the power of God. One of our saints in the Catholic tradition, Saint Vincent de Paul. Saint Francis de Sales. I confuse my French saints occasionally. But Saint Francis de Sales, an author of The Spiritual Life and one of the great writers, a classic writer in the Christian tradition. But he uses language at one point of the sacrament of the present moment. I'll say it again. The sacrament of the present moment. And it's powerful. We can get hung up thinking about the good days in the past. The people in the desert were thinking about the pans of meat or the flesh pots back in Egypt. Boy, it sure was good back when. Or we can think about the future. And sometimes we can live there in fantasies and hopes and dreams. Maybe in days of pandemic, crisis, stress, we might think about the future with fear or dread or anxiety or uncertainty or whatever. The sacrament of the present moment roots us here and now. Right now, I have what I need. Right now, God provides. Right now, I am loved from God, and I share that love with others. Letting go of the past, letting go of the future, and finding God rooted now in the present. So, this is a time in the desert with our God, time in the desert with each other. What does that look like? Again, I invite us to enter into some prayer. Exodus chapter 16 and some of chapter 17, remembering the way that in the desert God provided for the people, and an opportunity for us to reflect in our own prayer how it is that God is providing for us here and now in our desert experience. Even though we can't gather, we are still church. Be praying for each other. Know that I'm praying for you. We trust in all of these things that God is with us and guiding us, that this is holy ground and a sacred moment that God provides for our every need.